So on this next episode of Recommendations from My Shelf, I am going to recommend another manga, one that is a very unique one in my opinion, as it's a Viking adventure story that's not done with any supernatural or fantasy elements. It's very grounded and gritty. That book is Vinland Saga. This is volume one, and the cool part about these, if you're an English reader, is that they come in this awesome hardback edition, and they actually are two books combined in one. I don't think people talk often enough about editions and which version of a book is the best to physically read. For these, this really is. I mean, it's what they would call a turtleback, where there's no dust jacket. The graphics are built into the cover itself. The spine is very well stitched, as you can see here, and the paper quality is thick and good. For $20, this really is a bargain. You're getting, what you would pay for 2 volumes of One Piece with the production value at 10 times what Viz does with those. This is very specially printed, and I would argue you need to snatch these up while they're still around, because unfortunately, this series doesn't get a ton of shout outs compared to, the 17th isekai. For people who watch anime or read manga, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's certain genres in the field that get a ton of praise and press, and series like this kind of fall by the wayside for quite a long time until they get an anime adaptation that catches fire. But this book, as far as the artwork, it is exceptional. I mean, each piece, each panel is just drawn with perfect shading and emotion, and each one is a piece of art within itself. Also, I would say that another cool aspect of it is that the way that they do motion and action and the different angles that he puts the reader in for their viewing angle is really special. There's not many people who, in my opinion, utilize the medium so well as far as being able to really take different angles and utilize graphic fiction at its peak. A lot of people forget that this medium has ways of telling a story that a movie or a book can't do. And I think that this author and artist does it better than almost everyone. It's really impressive what he does. If you're actually familiar with comics, there's an artist, Daniel Warren Johnson, and I would say his art is similar to this in that it has the beauty, but it also has the emotional punch and the feeling of physical motion. There are points in this book where people use specific fighting styles, and you can actually feel and see and visualize those fighting styles, which is hard to do. It's hard to really do it in still images the way a specific fighting style would work against another in a way that doesn't feel too slow. In only a couple panels, this author artist is able to do that, and expertly so. So what I would say is that if you're looking for a Viking adventure, a pirate adventure, a medieval adventure, but you're not looking for something supernatural or fantasy oriented, you want something that is grounded, that doesn't have magic. Maybe a good example would be the gritty aspects of Game of Thrones. Heck, even The Walking Dead in a sense, because that book is grounded in the reality of its world, and it doesn't stray too far from that, even though there are zombies, in the same way that there are characters like Thorfinn, the main character here, who are quite adept and skilled and way more capable than most people, but it still feels grounded and realistic enough that it doesn't become lost or feel unnatural or phony. The book itself is about this character, Thorfinn. He is a young boy who's in a Viking tribe that unfortunately gets raided by another band, and they end up pillaging his whole land and stealing him, and he ends up being this orphan rogue swordsman who's sort of a weapon for hire. But that's only just the beginning of it. It starts out learning about his journey and the hard edge that he has and why he behaves this way, and the reasons for his behavior are totally justified. But then there's a point where the whole story and narrative is completely shifted and flipped on its head. I don't really want to spoil anything, but I'll say a little bit. Essentially, the people he works for, there's something that happens that changes the entire dynamic of the story and ends up moving into a new story arc that I was sort of concerned about if it would be interesting or boring. It ended up actually being the most interesting story arc that I've read in this book so far, the fallout of the incredible story that was told initially. So every piece and step that this author and artist has taken have just raised the bar for this story even higher. And that's pretty exceptional considering I think this book's at maybe 12 volumes in English at the moment. And I know there's probably more coming. I don't think it's finished yet. I haven't looked into that, but I do know that this book, once you start it, it won't matter. You won't want to stop. It's that good. The artwork is that engaging and precise, and there's that level of controlled violence that's so well done, and the actual story and the way you get involved in the characters and you really root for some and jeer for others. It truly is a special read. I would also say another thing about this book that's really cool is that there's little back pieces throughout, little individual parts where you hear from this author about the research, the extensive research that he did into Nordic and Viking culture, and how much of his time and energy he's poured into trying to make this extremely accurate yet still a fun fiction tale. I'm not going to say that it's totally factual because I would highly doubt that he didn't take some liberties with history, but I will say that he did an extensive amount of research, meaning that all of that effort is really felt in the story and the way that they behave, the way that they interact with each other, and the different political battles amongst these tribes. That's also another part that's really cool, is that he took these different areas and really explored the battles that they could have had. So if you're looking for an adventure that bridges the excitement and scale and epicness and also fierceness and a fierce adventure of, let's say, a battle manga or a superhero comic, but you would also like the intriguing, grounded plot with a gritty edge of more serious content, I would highly recommend Vinland Saga. I think that you'll absolutely love it. So if you're looking for a story that bridges those gaps, this would be the next recommendation off of my shelf.